My girlfriend called me saying she feels nothing for me anymore, called me a loser, and said she wants to be with a real man, so I said okay. Immediately canceled our engagement party, threw away her ring, and disappeared. Later, she realized everything and was on her knees at my doorstep. Hey everyone, my name is Ethan, and I'm 29 years old. I work as an environmental engineer at a sustainable development firm here in San Francisco, where I've been designing eco-friendly systems for the past 6 years. After years of surviving on ramen noodles and student loans, I'm finally making decent money. I'm not rich by any means, but I'm comfortable enough to live without constantly worrying about my bank account. Last year, before the housing market went completely insane, I managed to buy a decent one-bedroom condo. It felt like a huge accomplishment after years of throwing money away on rent, and I was proud to finally own something that was truly mine. Yesterday, I was sitting at my computer desk, finalizing some nightmare environmental compliance documents that had been giving me headaches for weeks. The paperwork was tedious, but it's part of the job, and I was trying to push through to meet a deadline. That's when my phone buzzed with a text message. It was from Jessica, my girlfriend of 3 years. We've been living together at my place for the last 15 months, and I honestly thought things were pretty solid between us. She's 24 and works part-time at this fancy boutique downtown, maybe 20 hours a week at most. She also dabbles in influencer marketing on Instagram, which basically means she posts pictures of overpriced smoothies and clothes she can't actually afford. Her parents still pay for her phone bill and car insurance, which I always found a bit odd for someone her age, but I tried not to judge. When I opened her text, my world basically stopped. It read, "Ethan, we need to talk. I've been doing a lot of self-discovery lately. Realized my polyamory is not a phase. It's who I truly am inside. You need to accept it or I'm gone. Let me know." Polyamory? What the actual hell was she talking about? In our 3 years together, we'd had all the important relationship conversations that couples have, discussions about our future plans, whether we wanted kids, our boundaries around intimacy, all of it. Not once, not even once, had polyamory ever come up as a topic of discussion. I'm strictly a one-woman guy. I believe in commitment and loyalty, and I thought Jessica felt the same way. She'd always claimed she was on the same page about monogamy. Hell, she even got jealous when I liked my college ex-girlfriend's vacation photos on Facebook a few months ago, making snide comments about it for days afterward. I stared at that text message for a solid 20 minutes, my brain completely short-circuiting as I tried to process what I was reading. My first instinct was to call her immediately and ask what the hell she was talking about. But then, I reread that last line. You need to accept it, or I'm gone. That wasn't an invitation for discussion or a request to explore our relationship dynamics together. That was a clear ultimatum, delivered like she was doing me some kind of favor by even giving me the choice. So after those 20 minutes of staring at my phone in disbelief, I typed back one simple word: noted. After sending that response, something clicked in my brain, and I switched into what I can only describe as damage control mode. She had said she was gone if I didn't accept her terms. I didn't accept those terms. Not even close. Therefore, by her own logic, she was gone. Her choice, her consequences. Here's an important fact about my living situation that becomes very relevant to this story. The condo is 100% mine. I bought it before Jessica and I even met, putting down the deposit using money from my environmental certification bonus plus some inheritance money I'd received. Jessica's name isn't on the mortgage, the deed, or even the utility accounts. She's essentially been living there as my guest. When she moved in with all her belongings about a year ago, there was never any formal financial arrangement between us. She would occasionally chip in for groceries or offer to grab takeout, saying things like, "I'll grab Thai food tonight," or "Here's $70 for the electric bill." But these were sporadic contributions at best, while I was covering the $2,100 monthly mortgage payment and the $380 HOA fees every single month without fail. Given this reality, the first thing I did after sending my noted response was call a locksmith. I explained that I needed an emergency lock change and asked how quickly someone could get to my place. The guy told me he could be there within an hour, and it would cost $250. Perfect. I told him to come right over. While waiting for the locksmith, I began packing all of Jessica's essential belongings. I gathered her clothes, toiletries, MacBook, phone chargers, and her extensive makeup collection. Basically everything she would need immediately if she was no longer living here. I placed it all carefully in her expensive luggage set, the same set I had bought for her last Christmas. I wasn't trying to be a vindictive asshole or throw her stuff into garbage bags like some kind of revenge fantasy. I was simply implementing the decision she had already made and communicated to me via text. Then I did something that maybe crossed a line, but felt absolutely necessary given the circumstances. I forwarded Jessica's exact text message to her parents, Robert and Linda. They're super traditional, conservative small business owners who go to church every Sunday without fail. They've always been weirdly supportive of Jessica financially, despite her being 24 years old. And I got the impression they thought I was a stabilizing influence in her life. If Jessica was making this kind of major life decision about polyamory and potentially moving out, I figured her parents deserved to know what was happening, especially since there was a good chance she might end up showing up on their doorstep, needing a place to crash. I didn't add any commentary or editorial remarks to the message. I just forwarded exactly what she had written to me, word for word. The locksmith arrived right on schedule and changed all the locks on my front door. After tax, it cost me $264, but honestly, the peace of mind was worth 10 times that amount. I was literally just finishing putting Jessica's Sephora makeup collection into one of the suitcases when my phone started blowing up with incoming calls. It was Linda, Jessica's mother, and her voice was tight with obvious distress when I answered. "Ethan, what on earth is this text Jessica sent you?" she asked, clearly upset and confused. "She just called me hysterical, saying you threw her out of your home. What is happening here?" I tried to stay as calm and reasonable as possible while explaining the situation. "Linda, I was just as shocked by her text as you are right now," I told her. "She sent it to me about an hour ago with a clear ultimatum about polyamory. She said if I don't accept it, she's gone. I don't accept being one of multiple boyfriends, so I'm simply respecting her stated decision to leave under those terms." Polyamory? Multiple boyfriends? Linda's voice cracked with genuine confusion. "That's not how we raised Jessica at all. Are you absolutely sure about this? She's telling me this is all a huge misunderstanding and that you've completely overreacted to something minor." I felt a flash of irritation at this response. This was classic Jessica behavior. Drop a bomb on someone, then immediately try to rewrite history when there are actual consequences involved. "Linda, I can send you a screenshot of the exact text message if you want to see it for yourself," I offered. There was no misunderstanding here. She specifically wrote, "Accept it or I'm gone," regarding polyamory. I didn't accept it, so logically, she's gone. I'm just following through on the terms she set. There was a long pause on the other end of the line, and I could practically hear Linda processing this information. "I'd like to see that text, Ethan, if you don't mind," she said finally, her voice much smaller now than when she'd first called. I sent the screenshot while we were still on the phone, and I could hear her sharp intake of breath as she read Jessica's exact words. "Oh my goodness," she said quietly. "This is exactly what you said it was. Jessica told me she was just asking to have a conversation about different relationship styles, not making any kind of demands or ultimatums." "It's not your fault, Linda," I assured her. "Her stuff is packed and ready by the front door. She's the one who issued the ultimatum, not me. I'm just taking her at her word and respecting her decision." Linda sounded completely frazzled and overwhelmed by this revelation. She mumbled something about needing to speak with Jessica again about what had really happened, and then hung up to deal with the situation on her end. Not even 10 minutes after hanging up with Linda, my Ring doorbell started going absolutely crazy with notifications. I checked my phone to see who was at the door, and there was Jessica, looking like an absolute storm cloud in her $280 designer sunglasses that I had bought for her birthday last year. "Ethan, open this damn door right now!" she shouted, her voice echoing through the hallway. "What the hell did you do?" I just sat on my couch and watched through my phone as she completely lost her mind in the hallway outside my apartment. The Ring camera was capturing everything, which I figured might be useful documentation later. "Ethan, this is a huge misunderstanding," she continued yelling at the door. "My mom is absolutely freaking out. Let me in. We need to talk about this right now. You can't just lock me out of my home." That last part particularly irritated me. This wasn't her home. It was my home that she had been living in. There's a significant difference between those two things, and the fact that she couldn't see that distinction was telling. "My parents are going absolutely insane," she kept shouting. "What did you tell them, Ethan? Did you show them my private messages?" More aggressive banging on the door followed, and then I watched as she tried her key furiously in the lock, rattling it back and forth when it predictably didn't work with the new locks I just had installed. When that failed, she went completely nuclear with her language. You psychotic fucking asshole! She screamed loud enough for the entire floor to hear. This isn't fair! I didn't mean it like that! You're twisting my words and making this into something it's not! I had to wonder how else "accept it or I'm gone" could possibly be interpreted. Like seriously, what other meaning could those words have? The message seemed pretty straightforward to me. I remained seated on my couch, with her belongings neatly packed just a few feet away from me, and sent her a calm text message. Jessica, your belongings are packed in your luggage by the front door. You can arrange a time to pick them up with a police escort if you feel it's necessary. Otherwise, let me know when you and a friend can come to collect them. I'm respecting your decision to leave, based on the terms you set in your text. The banging on the door stopped abruptly after I sent that message. Then my phone started getting hit with a barrage of text messages from her, calling me every name in the book and using language that would make a sailor blush. But then, almost immediately after the name calling, the tone of her messages suddenly shifted to desperate pleading. She started saying that I was totally overreacting to what she claimed was just an attempt to open a dialogue about her evolving sexuality. An ultimatum is a funny way to open a dialogue, but what do I know? It's been nearly a week since Jessica dropped her polyamory bomb on me. And holy shit, what a week it's been. If nothing else, this whole experience has confirmed that I'm not crazy for thinking that delivering ultimatums via text message is a complete garbage way to handle relationship issues. Jessica definitely did not take being locked out of my apartment well. After her door-banging meltdown in the hallway, she apparently drove straight to her parents' McMansion in the suburbs. From what Robert told me later, Linda and he were already deeply disturbed by the polyamory text I had forwarded to them. When Jessica arrived at their house throwing a complete tantrum, they took her in, but things got very tense very quickly. Jessica immediately tried spinning the entire situation, claiming that I had massively overreacted to what she insisted was just a hypothetical conversation. She told them I was being controlling and emotionally abusive, and that she had never actually meant any of what she'd written in the text. Her father, Robert, called me the next day, and he sounded genuinely torn about the whole situation. "Ethan, I've spoken with both Jessica and Linda about what happened," he said. "I saw the text you forwarded to us. To be completely honest with you, we're struggling to understand what's really going on here. Polyamory isn't how we raised Jessica at all, but she claims you completely misunderstood her intentions and that she was just trying to explore her feelings and open a dialogue with you." I had to set the record straight with him. "Robert, with all due respect, her text message wasn't ambiguous in the slightest," I explained. She wrote, "Accept it or I'm gone." There was no invitation for discussion or exploration. It was a clear ultimatum. I didn't accept the condition she set, so I acted accordingly. "She's telling us that you've been unreasonable," Robert continued, "and that you wouldn't even talk to her about it. She says she just worded things poorly because she was nervous about bringing up the topic." I had to laugh at that. If Jessica genuinely wanted to have a discussion about our relationship, starting with an ultimatum was possibly the worst approach she could have chosen. "Her things are ready whenever she wants to arrange to pick them up," I told Robert, keeping my response simple and direct. The next day, Jessica's best friend Madison started blowing up my phone with angry messages. Obviously, she had only heard Jessica's heavily edited victim narrative version of events. "Ethan, you're being such an ass," Madison texted me. "Jessica was just trying to be honest with you about her feelings. She told me you completely freaked out over nothing. She's absolutely devastated right now. You broke her heart by overreacting to her trying to be vulnerable with you. She made a mistake in how she worded things, okay? She was scared it would come out wrong, which it did, and now you're punishing her for it. You should be more understanding after 3 years together." After reading her entire tirade, I replied simply, "Madison, Jessica gave me a clear ultimatum, and I made my choice based on that. She's now trying to rewrite what actually happened. She needs to arrange to get her stuff instead of sending flying monkeys to harass me." Then I got a direct message from Caleb, a guy I'd met a few times through mutual friends. The message was awkward and uncomfortable, but I'm glad he reached out. "Hey man, this is really awkward, but I think you should know something," Caleb wrote. "Jessica's been sliding into my DMs for months with some pretty suggestive stuff. I always shut it down because I knew you two were together, but I just thought you should know now that you've broken up." I thanked him for the heads up and asked if he could send me screenshots. He obliged, and what I saw made my stomach drop. The timestamps showed that Jessica had been actively trying to hook up with Caleb while she was living in my condo, eating my food, and benefiting from my paycheck. The most recent message was just 2 days before she sent me the polyamory ultimatum. Suddenly, all the pieces were starting to fit together in a very ugly picture. The entitlement factor went to a completely new level when Jessica texted me saying she would come for her belongings on Saturday at 2 p.m. I told her that was fine and that I'd be there to supervise the pickup. Saturday arrived, and Jessica showed up 45 minutes late, which was typical for her. But instead of coming with just one friend for support, she brought not one but two people. Madison and Madison's boyfriend, Tyler. Tyler looked uncomfortable as hell and was clearly dragged into this situation against his better judgment. Jessica marched into my apartment without even acknowledging my presence and immediately started bossing Madison and Tyler around like they were hired help rather than friends doing her a favor. "Make sure you get my skincare collection from the bathroom cabinet," she ordered Madison. "The Drunk Elephant and Glossier stuff is in there. That's like $800 worth of products, and Ethan better not have touched any of it." Then she spotted the luggage I had carefully packed for her and had the audacity to complain about my packing job. "You stuffed my things in these bags? Seriously, Ethan? My designer blouses need to be hung up properly. Did you even fold anything correctly, or did you just throw everything in there?" "They're your suitcases, Jessica," I pointed out calmly. "The same ones I bought you for our Cabo trip last year." "Whatever, this is absolutely ridiculous," she muttered, rolling her eyes dramatically. That's when things got really interesting. Tyler picked up my PlayStation 5 from the entertainment center and started carrying it toward the door. "What are you doing with my PS5? I asked him directly. Jessica immediately jumped in to answer for him. "We play on it all the time," she said, as if that explained everything. "It's basically half mine at this point." "No, it's completely mine," I corrected her firmly. "I paid $680 for that console and stood in line for 4 hours to get it. Your name isn't on it anywhere, and you never contributed a single dollar toward purchasing it." "Don't be so petty and materialistic, Ethan," Jessica shot back. "It's just a stupid game console. You're being ridiculous about this." This was coming from the woman who was literally trying to steal my PlayStation while calling me materialistic. The irony was not lost on me. Then, Madison held up the Apple Watch I had gotten Jessica for her birthday a few months earlier. "She gets to keep this, right?" Madison asked. "Since you're being such a penny-pinching jerk about everything else?" "Of course she keeps her gifts," I said, trying to maintain my composure. "I'm not taking back presents I gave her." But Jessica wasn't done pushing boundaries. She then started going through my vinyl record collection, pulling out some of my rare albums that I'd been collecting since college. "What exactly are you doing now?" I asked, watching her rifle through my music. "Taking the albums I like," she said matter-of-factly. "You don't even listen to The Weeknd anymore, and I need these for my Instagram aesthetic posts." "Jessica, those are my records that I've been collecting since college," I said, my patience wearing thin. "You're here to pick up your belongings, not to take my property." "God, you're such a selfish fucking asshole," she snapped. "No wonder I wanted to see other people. You can't share anything." The audacity was absolutely mind-blowing. It wasn't enough that she had cheated on me and blown up our relationship with her ultimatum. Now she was essentially trying to loot my apartment while insulting me in the process. As Madison, Tyler, and Jessica were loading up Madison's car with Jessica's actual belongings, Jessica paused at my front door for what I assumed would be a final farewell. Instead, she decided to get in one last series of verbal shots. "You're going to regret this, Ethan," she said, pointing her finger at me accusingly. "You threw away something really special because you're too insecure and controlling to handle a modern relationship. Good luck finding anyone as hot as me with your receding hairline." I looked at her calmly and delivered my response. "I didn't throw anything away, Jessica. You did when you sent that ultimatum text. And you especially did when you were trying to hook up with Caleb for months behind my back." Her face went completely pale when I mentioned Caleb's name. "What?" she stammered, clearly caught off guard. "Caleb showed me the DMs," I continued. "All of them. Timestamps included. It's funny how your polyamory seemed to only apply to you and not to me." "You don't know what you're talking about," she said. But her voice had lost all its previous edge and confidence. "Caleb's lying about everything. He's been obsessed with me for months and is probably making stuff up." "Really?" "Because he has screenshots of your messages, Jessica," I replied. "Messages where you initiated everything. Messages where you suggested meeting up at hotels. Messages where you complained about your boring boyfriend who doesn't satisfy you sexually. Still want to stick with that story about Caleb lying?" Madison shifted uncomfortably and suddenly became very interested in examining her shoes. Tyler was staring at Jessica with undisguised disgust, clearly reevaluating everything he thought he knew about the situation. "That's not," Jessica started to say, but then looked from me to her friends, realizing she was rapidly losing her audience and their support. "You know what? I don't have to explain myself to you," she said, but the fight had gone out of her voice. "You clearly never understood me or my needs anyway." "No, I understood perfectly," I replied calmly. "I understood that you wanted the stability and financial benefits of having me around while sleeping with other guys behind my back. I understood that when you realized you might get caught, you tried to rebrand your cheating as polyamory to make it seem progressive instead of what it really was. Betrayal. And I understand now that you never actually loved me. I was just your safety net while you shopped around for something better." Madison cleared her throat awkwardly. "Jess, is this true? Were you really cheating on Ethan this whole time?" "Of course not," Jessica snapped, but her eyes couldn't meet Madison's gaze. "He's twisting everything because he can't handle being in a modern, evolved relationship." "Show her the screenshots then," I challenged. "If you're so innocent, let Madison see the messages between you and Caleb. Or better yet, let me send them to her right now so she can see for herself." Jessica's carefully constructed mask slipped completely, and pure rage flashed across her face. She grabbed the last of her bags with more force than necessary. "This isn't over," she hissed at me as she headed toward the door. "You think you're so smart, but you've made the biggest mistake of your life." She slammed my front door so hard that my neighbor's dog started barking in response. That evening, I received a Venmo request from Jessica for $380 with the memo, "Emotional distress and therapy." I declined it immediately with the note, "LMFAO." Then came another Venmo request for $85 with the memo, "My half of Hulu and Netflix accounts." I declined that one too with the note, "Accounts were always in my name and paid from my card." Then came a third request for $1,300 with the memo, "Half of furniture value." I declined that one as well with, "You didn't pay for any furniture. This isn't over, is it?" The sheer audacity was absolutely breathtaking. Part of me wanted to laugh at the ridiculousness of it all. Part of me was completely exhausted by the drama. But I was also weirdly calm now, because Jessica had shown her true colors, and they were uglier than I had ever imagined possible. Just when I thought the Jessica saga was finally winding down and I could get back to some semblance of normalcy, things went completely nuclear. But I have to say, the ending turned out to be pretty damn satisfying in a karma's a bitch kind of way. After the disastrous move-out day and her ridiculous Venmo requests, Jessica was still staying at her parents' house, and apparently things were deteriorating fast between them. The polyamory explanation she had given them was falling apart under closer scrutiny, and her parents were starting to ask more pointed questions about what had really happened. The first sign that things were escalating came in the form of an email from my condo association. It was a formal complaint filed against me, alleging consistent domestic disturbances and concerning behavior. The complaint specifically cited the night I had changed the locks, when Jessica was the one having a public meltdown in the hallway, and the day she moved out, when she and her friends were loudly arguing about trying to take my belongings. The complaint suggested that I was potentially dangerous to the community and could affect property values and the peaceful enjoyment of other residents. My jaw absolutely hit the floor when I read this. Jessica was actually trying to get me in trouble with my HOA, which could potentially affect my property value and my standing in the building where I owned my home. I immediately called Lisa, the condo board president. Thankfully, Lisa knows me fairly well. I'm the quiet environmental engineer who pays his HOA fees on time every month and helps elderly neighbors troubleshoot their Wi-Fi when it goes down. I calmly explained the entire situation to her. My girlfriend had sent me an ultimatum. I had accepted her terms, and she had created a scene outside my door, which my Ring camera had recorded. Then she had caused drama during the move-out process when she tried to take belongings that didn't belong to her. I offered to show Lisa both the doorbell footage and the original text message that had started everything. "I've already had 2 very dramatic phone calls about this situation," Lisa admitted. One from a hysterical young woman claiming you illegally evicted her from your unit, and another from an older woman claiming to be her mother. They were both making some pretty serious allegations about your character and behavior. I have to document all complaints that come in, but honestly their stories didn't add up and seemed specifically crafted to cause you problems. There was no eviction, legal or otherwise, I explained. She's not on any paperwork related to my unit. She issued an ultimatum in a text message, and I accepted the terms she set. I have the exact text, Lisa, and if you want me to forward that text and the video footage to you, that would help put this matter to rest. I'll send it over right away, I promised. I'm sorry you got dragged into this mess. Don't apologize, Lisa replied, and I could hear her voice softening. Between you and me, that young woman seemed very manipulative during our phone conversation. She kept changing her story when I asked direct questions. First, she claimed she had lived in your unit for 2 years and paid half the mortgage. Then when I mentioned that I had records showing you bought the unit before that timeline, she suddenly said she had misspoken and completely changed her story. That sounds exactly like Jessica, I sighed. And her mother was equally intense, Lisa continued. She kept saying how her daughter was such a good Christian girl who would never lie about anything, while also threatening to sue the entire HOA for emotional damages. It was quite the performance, honestly. I grimaced. Linda's usually more level-headed than that. I think Jessica has been feeding her a lot of misinformation about what actually happened. Well, send me what you have and we'll get this sorted out, Lisa said. And Ethan, I'd recommend documenting everything going forward. People who make false complaints like this rarely stop at just one attempt. I sent Lisa everything she needed, and the complaint was dismissed just 2 days later. Jessica's attempt to damage my reputation had failed spectacularly. But the real bombshell dropped about a week later when Robert, Jessica's father, called me. He sounded completely defeated and genuinely embarrassed about the whole situation. Ethan, Linda and I owe you a sincere apology, he said without preamble. For what? I asked, though I had a feeling I knew where this was going. The polyamory thing, it wasn't the whole story. Jessica's been having affairs. Multiple affairs with multiple men for months. My stomach dropped even though I had suspected something like this. Hearing it confirmed was still a punch to the gut. This is worse than I thought, I said quietly. Robert explained that Linda had gotten suspicious after Jessica kept changing small details about the text message and my reaction to it. While Jessica was taking a nap, Linda had borrowed Jessica's iPad, the one that Robert and Linda had paid for, and found everything. Dating app messages, explicit photos, hotel receipts, the whole digital trail of deception. According to Robert, Jessica had been juggling at least 3 different side relationships. There was Marcus, a 43-year-old married executive from her boutique. There was Kyle, a 30-year-old wannabe DJ and promoter. And there was Brandon, a 35-year-old personal trainer at her gym. Apparently, the plan had been for the executive, Marcus, to leave his wife, and then Jessica would dump me for him since he made what she considered real money. Those were his exact words in the text messages. But Marcus was dragging his feet on actually leaving his wife, which left Jessica in limbo. The polyamory text message had been Jessica's Hail Mary, attempt to have it all. Keep me as the stable backup option while openly seeing these other guys. When I immediately called her bluff and changed the locks, her entire scheme had imploded completely. The polyamory angle was just a desperate attempt to rebrand her cheating as something progressive and enlightened rather than what it actually was. Plain old infidelity. My head was spinning as I processed all of this information. The vague ultimatum, the immediate backpedaling when faced with real consequences, her frantic claims of misunderstanding. It had all been calculated manipulation from start to finish. Robert, I really appreciate you telling me this, I said finally. I'm sorry you and Linda had to find out about Jessica's behavior this way. She lied to us constantly, Robert replied, his voice heavy with disappointment. She told us you were controlling and had misinterpreted her innocent intentions. Linda is absolutely devastated. We didn't raise her to behave this way. Then came what I can only describe as the icing on the karma cake. After confronting Jessica with all the evidence they had found, Robert and Linda discovered that she had been using their credit card to pay for hotel rooms where she met these men. Over $3,200 in charges at mid-range hotels around the city, charges that they had assumed were for girls' weekends with friends. They immediately cut off her credit cards, removed her from their family phone plan, and told her she couldn't continue staying with them unless she got a real full-time job and entered therapy sessions. Jessica had gone absolutely ballistic at this ultimatum from her own parents. She accused them of betrayal, packed her bags in a rage, and announced that she was going to stay with Madison instead. Robert, I know this is incredibly difficult for you and Linda, I said, but you're absolutely doing the right thing. Enabling her behavior any further won't help her in the long run. I know, he sighed heavily. We've been enabling her for years, if I'm being completely honest. I thought she would outgrow the entitlement, but instead, we got this situation. What do you mean when you said she went ballistic? I asked. The things she said to Linda when we confronted her with the evidence, Ethan. I've never heard such cruelty from my own daughter. She told Linda that we were pathetic, controlling religious freaks who were jealous of her lifestyle. She said we had wasted our lives in what she called a monogamous prison, and that she actually pitied us. Then she screamed that we had never really loved her and only cared about appearances and what the neighbors might think. His voice broke as he continued. 26 years of sacrificing everything for her, and that's what she thinks of us. I didn't know what to say. The Jessica I had known could be selfish and manipulative, but this level of cruelty toward her own parents was shocking even to me. The worst part is, Robert continued after collecting himself, we found evidence that she's been stealing from us for years. Small amounts from Linda's purse, items from our home that mysteriously disappeared and were probably sold online, even some of Linda's jewelry that we thought had just been misplaced. It's like we don't even know who our daughter really is anymore. After we hung up, I sat in complete silence for a long time, processing everything Robert had told me. The Jessica I thought I had known and loved had never actually existed. The woman I had lived with for over a year was just a carefully crafted persona designed to extract maximum benefit with minimum contribution. The real Jessica was someone I had never truly met, and frankly, never wanted to meet. 3 days later, I received an unexpected text from Tyler, Madison's boyfriend, the same uncomfortable guy who had been dragged into Jessica's move-out day against his will. "Hey man, FYI, Jessica got kicked out of Madison's place too," he wrote. "She was hitting on me when Madison wasn't around, ate all their food, ran up their utility bills, and wasn't pitching in a single dime for anything. Madison found her going through her closet, trying on expensive clothes without permission. Just thought you should know, you dodged a nuclear missile with that one." When I woke up the day after hearing about Jessica getting kicked out of Madison's apartment, I had this weird sense of closure starting to form in my mind. But apparently, there was still more drama left to unfold. Because with someone like Jessica, the story is never quite finished when you think it is. I decided to take a day completely for myself and went hiking at Golden Gate Park. Something Jessica had always complained about because she said it ruined her hair and involved too much walking for her taste. The fresh air and solitude felt absolutely incredible after weeks of nonstop chaos and drama. For the first time in days, I could actually think clearly about everything that had happened without feeling overwhelmed. While I was taking a break at one of the scenic viewpoints overlooking the bay, I received an unexpected phone call from Morgan, one of Jessica's former co-workers at the boutique. We had met a few times at work events and holiday parties, but we weren't really friends or anything. I was surprised she even had my number. "Ethan, hey, I hope it's okay that I called you," Morgan said. "Madison gave me your number. I just wanted you to know that there are some things about what was happening at the store that you should probably be aware of." My stomach immediately tightened with dread. "Go ahead, I'm listening." So Marcus, the married executive that you probably heard about by now, he wasn't the only person at work that Jessica was involved with. There was also the regional manager and even the owner's son. She was basically sleeping her way through the entire management structure of the company. "Jesus Christ," I muttered under my breath. "Did everyone at the store know what was going on?" I asked. "Most of us suspected something, but Jessica was actually pretty careful about keeping things discreet during work hours," Morgan explained. "The thing is, she was constantly bragging to me and a couple of the other girls about her perfect setup. She talked about how she had this stable, boring boyfriend who paid for everything while she got to have fun with what she called real men. Each word felt like a knife twisting in my chest. Not just because of the betrayal itself, but because of how calculated and deliberate it all was." "She actually called me boring?" I asked, though I don't know why that particular detail stood out among everything else Morgan was telling me. "All the time," Morgan confirmed. "She said you were predictable and safe, but totally clueless about what was really going on. She actually showed us your credit card statements once, laughing about how you never questioned the charges or asked what she was spending money on. I suddenly remembered those monthly statements, filled with small purchases here and there that had never seemed worth investigating or questioning. Now I realized they were probably gifts for her side guys, paid for with my money. There's more," Morgan continued hesitantly. "The day before she sent you that polyamory text message, she was showing off this expensive watch that Marcus had bought her. She told us it was time to upgrade her situation, and that the polyamory thing was her exit strategy in case the Marcus situation fell through and didn't work out the way she wanted. The calculated cruelty of it all was absolutely staggering. This wasn't just cheating or even regular infidelity. This was a meticulously planned con game with me as the unwitting victim. Ethan, I'm telling you all of this because what she did was completely wrong," Morgan said. "Many of us at work felt uncomfortable with how she talked about you, but we didn't know how to reach out or what to say. When we heard what happened with the ultimatum and how you handled the whole situation, Honestly, we were all pretty impressed. She never expected there to be any real consequences for her actions. I thanked Morgan for the call and her honesty, then sat on that cliff edge overlooking the bay for another hour, just processing everything she had told me. The betrayal hurt, obviously, but there was also this growing sense of relief washing over me. I had escaped something far more toxic and dangerous than I had initially realized. When I finally got home from my hike, there was an envelope that had been slipped under my front door. Inside was a handwritten letter from Mrs. Rodriguez, my 76-year-old neighbor who lived directly across the hall from me. In her shaky handwriting, she explained that she had overheard multiple arguments over the past several months, where Jessica was verbally abusing me when she thought no one else could hear what was happening. "Young man, I've lived long enough to recognize a manipulator when I see one," she had written. "That girl would be syrupy, sweet, and charming in the hallway when other people were around. But then I'd hear her through the walls screaming at you for the smallest things. I'm glad she's gone. You deserve to have peace in your own home." I sat with that letter for a long time, remembering all the small incidents I had excused or minimized over the months. The public criticisms disguised as harmless jokes, the way she would subtly put me down in front of our friends, the constant comparisons to more successful men she knew. These were all classic manipulation tactics that I had been too emotionally invested to see clearly. The next day, I decided to take some proactive action to protect myself going forward. I gathered all the evidence I had accumulated, the text messages, the Ring doorbell footage, the testimonials from friends and neighbors, and met with a lawyer friend for coffee to get some advice. He confirmed what I had already started to suspect. I needed to document everything carefully in case Jessica tried to escalate her behavior even further. "She's already attempted to damage your reputation with the HOA," he pointed out. "People like this often don't stop until they've completely exhausted all their options for revenge or extortion. You need to be prepared for that possibility." He helped me draft a formal cease and desist letter, clearly outlining the harassment and defamation attempts, with a very clear warning that any further contact or attempts to damage my reputation would result in immediate legal action. Meanwhile, the fallout in Jessica's life continued to unfold. Through various mutual connections, I learned that Marcus's wife had filed for divorce after discovering the affair, specifically naming Jessica in the legal paperwork. The boutique had fired Jessica once the full extent of her workplace relationships had come to light and created liability issues for the company. According to Madison, who had reached out to apologize for initially believing Jessica's lies, Jessica was now couch surfing between different acquaintances and frantically trying to rebuild her influencer brand. But sponsors were dropping her left and right after discovering her manipulative behavior and the drama surrounding her personal life. The polyamory text that had started this entire ordeal now seemed almost comical in its transparency. It wasn't about sexual freedom or emotional exploration or any kind of progressive relationship philosophy. It was just a last-ditch effort to maintain her comfortable living situation while continuing her affairs without consequences. When I didn't play along with her scheme, the entire house of cards had collapsed spectacularly. Just when things were starting to feel normal again, and I was beginning to settle into a peaceful routine, my newfound tranquility was interrupted by an unexpected phone call at nearly midnight on a Tuesday. The caller ID showed an unknown number, but I had a sinking feeling I knew exactly who it was. "Hello?" I answered cautiously. "Ethan," came Jessica's voice, thick with emotion and what sounded like she'd been drinking. "Ethan, I need to talk to you." "It's midnight, Jessica. What do you want?" I replied, keeping my voice flat and emotionless. "Everything's falling apart," she said, her words slightly slurred. "Marcus is getting divorced and he blames me for everything. His wife went completely crazy when she found out. She called the store owner and got me fired." "Fired, Ethan? Do you understand what that means?" "Actions have consequences," I replied flatly, not feeling an ounce of sympathy. "My parents won't help me anymore," she continued, her voice becoming more desperate. "Madison kicked me out after what happened with Tyler. I've been staying on Kyle's couch, but he wants me gone by Friday because his new girlfriend doesn't like having me around. What am I supposed to do?" "Not my problem," I said simply. "I have $257 in my bank account," Jessica said, and I could hear her starting to cry. $257. Do you have any idea how expensive apartments are in this city? I can't even afford a security deposit anywhere decent." "Again, not my problem," I repeated, maintaining my emotional distance. "You lived with me for over a year," she pleaded. "You can't just throw me away like garbage after everything we've been through together. I made a mistake, okay? A stupid mistake. Why are you being so cruel to me? I took a deep breath before responding. Jessica, you cheated on me with multiple men for months. You gave me a clear ultimatum via text message. You tried to steal my belongings when you moved out. You filed false complaints about me with my HOA. You tried to ruin my reputation in my own building. This isn't cruelty. This is karma finally catching up with you. I need help, Ethan, she said, her voice breaking. Just let me stay in your spare room until I can figure things out. I won't bother you, I promise. I'll stay out of your way completely. Please, I'm desperate here. No, I said firmly. Why not? She asked. After everything we've been through together, all the good times we shared, I still love you, Ethan. I made a terrible mistake and I recognize that now. People deserve second chances, don't they? The audacity was absolutely breathtaking, even by Jessica's standards. You didn't make a mistake, Jessica, I explained patiently. You made hundreds of deliberate choices, day after day, week after week, to deceive and manipulate me. That wasn't a mistake. That was a calculated strategy that you executed over months. You're still angry, I get it, she said, changing her tactics to sound more reasonable. But you're a good person, Ethan. A genuinely kind person. Do you really want me sleeping on the street? Is that who you are deep down? Don't try to guilt me, I warned her. Your current situation is entirely of your own making. You had a stable home with your parents who love you, and you chose to throw that away too when they tried to hold you accountable. They're being completely unreasonable, Jessica protested. They want me to get some boring office job and go to therapy 3 times a week. They're treating me like I'm a child instead of an adult. No, they're treating you like an adult who needs to face real consequences for her actions, I corrected her. She started sobbing harder at this point. What do you want from me? An apology? Fine, I'm sorry. Is that what you want to hear? I'm sorry for everything that happened. I don't want anything from you, I said calmly, except to never hear from you again. You're enjoying this, aren't you? She suddenly snapped, her tone shifting from pleading to accusatory. Seeing me suffer like this, does it make you feel like a big man watching me struggle? Goodbye, Jessica, I said, and hung up the phone immediately. I then blocked that number and went to bed, but of course, that wasn't the end of it. The next day, I received desperate messages from Jessica on every single platform where she could possibly contact me. Email, LinkedIn, and somehow she even managed to send me messages on my work Slack, though I have no idea how she got access to that. Each message was more pathetic than the last, begging for money, a place to stay, or even asking if I could co-sign for an apartment lease for her. The desperation was palpable, but I ignored every single attempt at communication. One particularly disturbing email caught my attention and made me genuinely concerned. It read, Ethan, if you don't help me, I might have to do something desperate. I can't live like this anymore. Do you want that on your conscience? Because it will be your fault if something happens to me. This emotional manipulation and thinly veiled threat pushed me completely over the edge. I immediately forwarded the message to my lawyer friend, who recommended filing for a restraining order based on the clear pattern of harassment and the implicit threat of self-harm. This is textbook emotional blackmail, he explained to me. The fact that she's escalating to these kinds of threats after you've clearly cut all contact is genuinely concerning. We need to document everything and establish legal boundaries right now before this gets any worse. I blocked Jessica on every remaining platform where she might be able to reach me and filed a formal harassment report with the local police, just to start creating an official paper trail of her behavior. That evening, I got an unexpected visitor at my front door. After checking the peephole very carefully, I saw that it was Madison, looking completely exhausted and stressed out. I'm sorry to just show up like this, Madison said when I opened the door, but I needed to apologize to you in person and warn you about something important. I invited her inside cautiously, keeping our conversation in the living room where I felt more comfortable. First, I'm so incredibly sorry that I believed Jessica's lies about what happened, Madison started. She made you sound like this controlling, abusive monster who had completely overreacted to an innocent conversation. But now, I see that she was projecting her own issues onto you the entire time. What happened after she stayed with you? I asked, genuinely curious about how that situation had unfolded. Madison shook her head in disbelief. It was an absolute nightmare from day one. She acted like Tyler and I were her personal servants. She ate our food, used my expensive skincare products without asking permission, borrowed my clothes, and returned them stained or damaged. She was constantly on her phone setting up dates with different guys, then would get ready for these dates using all my makeup and perfume. That sounds like the Jessica I knew, I commented. The final straw was when I came home early from work one day and found her going through my jewelry box, Madison continued. She claimed she was just admiring my stuff, but later that day, I noticed my gold bracelet was missing. When I confronted her about it, she flew into this insane rage, called me paranoid and jealous, and stormed out of the apartment. The bracelet mysteriously reappeared in the bathroom the next day. Madison looked down, clearly embarrassed about the whole situation. But Ethan, that's not actually why I'm here tonight. What do you mean? I asked. She's been saying some really concerning things about you to anyone who will listen. She's claiming that you abused her, that you stole her money, and even that you have compromising videos of her that you're threatening to release online. It's all complete lies, obviously, but she's telling this story to anyone who will listen to her. My stomach dropped. So she's actively trying to destroy my reputation. Exactly. And after what happened between her and Tyler, I'm genuinely worried that she might try something more extreme for revenge. Just be really careful, okay? Document everything and watch your back. 3 days later, Robert called me again, sounding even more defeated than before. Ethan, Jessica showed up at our door at midnight last night, he said wearily. She was crying hysterically and said she's homeless and completely broke. Linda's heart is breaking for her, but we're standing firm on our conditions. She can only come back home if she agrees to start therapy, gets a legitimate full-time job, and follows our household rules while she's living under our roof. Stay strong, Robert, I encouraged him. This might be rock bottom for her, but maybe that's exactly what she needs right now. We've already started getting calls from collection agencies, Robert continued. Apparently, she has over $16,000 in credit card debt that we didn't know anything about. Designer clothes, luxury makeup, hotel rooms for her affairs, all of it charged to credit cards we didn't even know she had access to. We're not bailing her out this time. That's absolutely the right call, I assured him. After I hung up with Robert, I felt a strange mix of emotions. There was vindication, sadness for her parents who were dealing with this mess, and finally, genuine relief. The Jessica chapter of my life was truly closing, and I was ready to turn the page and move forward. It's been 3 months since Jessica sent that polyamory text message that changed everything in my life. I wish I could say that the drama ended completely after her midnight meltdown and desperate attempts to contact me. But she made a few more pathetic attempts to insert herself back into my world. Each one was met with complete silence from me and additional documentation for the growing file that my lawyer was keeping on her behavior. The most surprising turn in this whole saga came just last week, when I received a handwritten letter from Jessica in my mailbox. Unlike all her previous communications, this one wasn't filled with accusations, demands, or pleas for help. It was what appeared to be an actual, genuine apology. Ethan, I've been in therapy for 2 months now, the letter read. My therapist doesn't know I'm writing this letter, but I needed to tell you that I understand now what I did to you. It was manipulative, selfish, and incredibly cruel. You didn't deserve any of it. I'm not asking for forgiveness or another chance. I know those bridges are burned forever. I just wanted you to know that I'm facing my issues and trying to become a better person. What I did to you was wrong on every level, and I'm truly sorry. There was no request for a response, no subtle hints at reconciliation, no hidden agenda. Just a straightforward acknowledgement of wrongdoing and a simple apology. Whether it was genuine or just another manipulation tactic, I couldn't be sure, and honestly, it didn't matter anymore. I had moved on completely. As for me, I'm doing absolutely fantastic. I changed all my passwords on every account, took a wonderful solo trip to Miami for a long weekend, and reconnected with several friends that Jessica had never liked, which I now realize was a major red flag that I completely ignored at the time. I even went on a casual date with a landscape architect from another firm who actually loves hiking and pays for her own stuff. Imagine that! The apartment feels cleaner, more spacious, and more authentically mine than it has in over a year. My bank account is already recovering without Jessica's constant financial drain on my resources. When I look back at our entire relationship now, I can see all the warning signs that I missed or chose to ignore. The entitlement, the selfishness, the subtle manipulation tactics. I've learned my lesson, and I'll never ignore those red flags again. Sometimes the trash really does take itself out, and sometimes it just needs a little push in the right direction. I'm feeling good about sharing this story with people who understand what it's like to deal with manipulative partners. Now I'm focused entirely on myself, my career, and eventually finding someone who doesn't think loyalty and monogamy are outdated concepts from a bygone era. Someone who understands that a relationship should be a partnership, not a one-sided financial arrangement with benefits. TLDR. Girlfriend of 3 years sent me an ultimatum text demanding I accept her polyamory or she'd leave. I immediately changed the locks, packed her stuff, and accepted her terms. Turns out she'd been cheating with multiple guys for months, and the polyamory was just a way to legitimize her affairs. She tried to manipulate the situation, steal my belongings, and ruin my reputation when her scheme backfired. Now she's homeless, jobless, and facing the consequences of her actions while I'm living my best life. What would you have done in my situation? Was I too harsh, or did she get exactly what she deserved?